I would like to call to order the Haymarket Town Council work session to order for this evening, Monday, January 13th, 2025. Roll call, please.
Vianney,
Here.
Casanello, Larson,
Here.
Pater,
Here.
Ramirez.
Here.
Gallagher,
Here.
Baker.
All right, so our discussion this evening's work session is SUP 2024-001 Chick-fil-A drive-through expansion. Thomas, will you please bring us up to date?
Yes, allow me to read this into record, and then I will give council updates on the discussion for the SCP. During the agenda item for SCP number 2024-001 at our December 2nd regular monthly meeting, there was a discussion with the applicant to continue the discussion of the application to January 6, 2025. The council scheduled a work session to begin at 6 p.m. for further discussion of the application, and the applicant was in agreement with the extension. Due to inclement weather, the meeting had to be rescheduled. We spoke with the applicant through email on January 3rd, 2025, on the potential of needing to move the meeting to January 13th. The applicant did not have any issues or concerns with the rescheduling of the work session and the meeting. Town staff kept the applicant informed of the rescheduling date as weather was updated. With that said, we are now able to continue the discussion of the application with the applicant present this evening.
Okay.
So now that's in record. I just wanted to give council a few brief updates. I know there's a lot of talk about one, just looking at the other two exhibits provided on top of the first exhibit that was submitted to us. I've looked over the exhibits. I've met with council members individually to discuss the exhibits as well. I wanted to give a few updates just on my end. I know that as part of the SCP over Planning Commission, we didn't ask for a traffic study. I wanted to give brief updates on some trip generations from adjacent site plans that we've reviewed, one being an approved site plan, just so there's at least a feel for traffic, even if there wasn't an official traffic study provided. So I'll give council those numbers right now. This is for, at the time, the approved Kitty Academy site plan just north of Chick-fil-A. Per the ITE trip generation for that site, and what the generation also accounts for adjacent traffic, not just on traffic onto that additional site. So this is for Crossroads Village Boulevard and just adjacent traffic nearby Washington Street around there. Daily total generated trips for that area would be 834 AM peaks at 137, PM peaks at 139. With the preliminary site plan we're reviewing on the hotel pad site right now, that daily trip generation goes up to 915 total. Just wanted to give council updates on that. A brief summary of some of the items that I've reiterated as well and updated in the staff report. I wanted to bring up the landscaping requirement in section 58-19.13, section D, parking lots adjacent to other parking lots. This is about landscaping requirement between the two. I know it's a drive-through. This is two adjacent pad sites and adjacent lots next to each other, so that's how I interpreted it. Landscape area requirements stated within that section: a continuous landscape strip at least 5 feet in width shall be located between the property owner's parking lot and the property line. With that in mind, that was also part of the approved 2015 special use permit initially for the drive-through that was approved. In my staff report, I stand by that interpretation. At the time, the zoning administrator and I, this is in April 2024, we both stood by this proposal, not necessarily warranting a waiver granted to remove that landscaping buffer. So I just wanted to keep council in mind of that. Additional updates within the staff report were potential loading concerns at the bank in terms of money security, if the parking lot's altered anyway or not altered. If it's loaded, if loading occurs at the front of the bank parking, that could be a concern for an applicant or just a security concern. I wanted to also bring up the fire marshal discussion I had. We brought the 3 exhibits to the fire marshal to talk about emergency vehicle access. In their words, we've looked at it again when I resent them the exhibits that were sent to me. Exhibits 2 or 1 would be recommended in that order. We would not recommend exhibit 3. And I'll display the exhibits again for council's consideration. Exhibit 2 has perpendicular parking. Exhibit 3 has 45-degree angled parking. On top of all those are my main updates. I'd like to invite the applicant up now. I'm also going to display the 3 options available on this projector here in case council wants to zoom in on that. I've also provided all council members with the 3 exhibits on paper for you to look at. So this time I'd like to invite the applicant to come up, answer any questions. We'll start with Councilmember Bayene for the first questions given to the applicant.
Good evening.
Yeah, thanks, Thomas. I currently don't have any questions. I believe I asked most of my questions during the previous meeting, but I may have some, it is on. But I may have some questions as this meeting goes on or during the regular meeting.
I do not have any questions at this time.
Can you just please identify 1, 2, and 3 as far as the options since we have them on our dais,
Yes.
please?
What you see here is Exhibit 1 with delineators, plastic delineators, landscaping, or excuse me, plastic delineators and bike curb installation here. This is Exhibit 2 with a 2-foot hardscape curb and perpendicular parking adjacent to the bank. This is Exhibit 3 with 45-degree angle parking and a 2-foot hardscape curb.
Thank you. Councilperson Ramirez, do you have any questions?
I did have a question. What was the plan for the landscaping since the proposal here has you removing the landscaping in between the parcels? However, I think it's something that council had approved to require a certain amount of green space per parcel. So what was the plan with that?
The initial plan was to supplement any demolished landscaping between the islands still located at the drive-through exit, just on either side of the pedestrian access, and initially supplementing where we would be narrowing the curb at the entrance exit. But the most previous iteration of Exhibit 3 shows that to remain as it is in existing conditions with a 2-way traffic flow. So the only place for plantings is the 2-foot curbed island between the bank and Chick-fil-A, where it is 2 feet for shrubs, and then additional plantings in the curbed islands for the pedestrian refuge at the drive-through exit.
Thank you. That's all that I have right now.
Just for clarification, and Thomas, maybe this is a question for you. The fire marshal was recommending against option 3 with the slanted parking. Is that correct? Can you just kind of reiterate again what the stated reason for that was, if one was given?
When I initially reached out to the fire marshal, it was in regards to if an emergency vehicle, as you see with the one-way pattern going counterclockwise, if an emergency vehicle could make that turn with the curb in place. With Exhibit 3, it's slightly extended to accommodate for the angled parking depth requirements. And so that's where the concern came up, where the recommendation was for Exhibit 2 and 1 over 3.
Okay, thank you. I don't have anything else right now.
Do they have a second sheet?
Does it have anything?
Tractor. I have. I only have.
I just had a question with just kind of traffic purposes with Dental Smiles or coming to their or Lifetime Smiles. Will that have any effect with traffic being deviated coming in or out of Chick-fil-A?
No, their plan used these proposed conditions as like their existing conditions, since we had been coordinating this longer than they had been working on theirs.
Okay.
So no impact to their anticipated flow.
Okay. And then with all these changes that are going, I kind of just all these changes that are happening just for one business, modifying to the bank, modifying everywhere just for Chick-fil-A. I understand you've gone through a lot of kind of work to get this done, but just a lot of changes just for one business to be approved to get it done. I really don't have anything else.
Okay. Are there any additional comments?
Yes, I have a question for Thomas. A little bit clarification. I'm not fully understanding this part. Here you say, I think it's you who wrote this, Thomas. You say the zoning administrator has affirmed any waiver request for this landscaping requirement would be denied. I guess this is talking about the buffer, right? What does that actually mean? And one more thing, as such, the entire project structure is based on a violation of the zoning ordinance. So does that mean if we approve this, we would actually be violating our own zoning ordinance?
Where I'm going with this is, and let me set this down and I'll get you the email that I have. From a previous email in April 2024, April 30th, 2024, in correspondence with the engineers on this project. Emily, the zoning administrator, and I agree that this particular situation does not warrant a waiver request. With that, it said with the staff report as well, it turns into, from my analysis, a conflict point of if this waiver is not granted, then all of this is contingent on that one landscape buffer being removed and then having to be replaced adequately to meet landscape percentage requirements. Or if approved, then we have to grant the waiver.
Did that fully answer your question?
Not sure if I'm clear.
Okay.
So if we approve this without the waiver, would we be violating our zoning ordinance?
It would turn into a conflict point where staff would be put upon to then approve a waiver, even if it is our recommendation not to.
Okay. And then the part, and again, it says the administrator, to repeat again, the administrator has affirmed any waiver request for this landscaping requirement would be denied. But what you're saying is if we do approve this SUP, you'll be forced into approving the waiver? Is that, am I understanding things correctly? Okay.
So when this originally came up for discussion, our previous planning commission did a lot of work to ensure that we had landscaping requirements that we ensure all of our properties meet when they come in for a site plan. This is something that in our most recent rewrite of the zoning ordinance, actually several years ago now, we increased the amount of landscaping in certain business districts because we found it at the time, the planning commission as well as the town council found it to be of utmost importance to maintain this green space. And so when this originally came up and we had conversations with their civil engineering team, we stated that this is something that would need to be maintained, whether it be in this location or another location on site. I understand they have a lot of site constraints and that they are surrounded on all sides. And so there's not a lot of room to add or move landscaping. And so we made it very clear from the get-go that this is not something we were in favor of. As a zoning administrator, I was not in favor of waiving this landscaping. I think it's important that if we're going to hold our other properties to putting in landscaping and increasing our landscaping requirements in the zoning ordinance, that we need to do the same for these other properties. So that's where this originally came up when they first approached us. Mhm.
Thanks.
All right, any further questions? No? All right, with that discussion being closed, are we ready to adjourn the work session? Is that where we are?
There's an additional.
Okay.
Barring any other additional comments, we talked a lot about ensuring that the entrance exit point at the north side of the Chick-fil-A lot would be maintained instead of just having it be an exit point. The applicant has provided an updated exhibit just for your consideration right now that we can look at and discuss.
Perfect, thank you.
The second, there's 2 sheets to the exhibit, and I apologize, I only have 5 copies, but I'll hand it down. The second sheet also shows the fire truck movement through, as that was, from what I understand, the fire marshal's concerned with the angled parking layout, but the angled parking was not preferred, but more liked by town staff, so.
I'll share. Yeah. So this is this one. So let's see if this is smaller. So the size here and the angle there is different. And then
May I ask a question?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. So I see on Exhibit 3, the updated version, that the angle that the fire marshal was concerned about is adjusted to slightly smaller dimensions. And did I hear correctly that the other edit to this was the entry exit and the back end of the property? Okay, I just wanted to confirm because visually they're like,
I know, yeah, that entrance exit is basically left as is to remain.
okay, so there would be no changes to the current entry exit with this update?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, not about the site plan, but I think since we have plenty of time, Thomas, if you don't mind, if it's okay with you, Mayor, I think it's important for us to review the staff recommendation, right? So if we can spend a little bit of time, if I'm not mistaken, the staff recommendation is still to deny the SUP, right? So if we can, you, Emily, or someone can share with us the points that you make in here, maybe summarize it, and maybe allow us to ask questions and have a discussion, I would appreciate that.
No, you're fine.
Just to briefly summarize, I've already discussed the landscaping buffer requirements. With that, it sets off all of the adjustments that we're making right now if we allow that landscaping buffer requirement to be waived. My thoughts as well in reviewing this are also about, it's the same pad site where Chick-fil-A and the bank are technically the same pad site. It would be part of the same site plan amendment, no 2 separate amendments. It would all be done together. That being said, I don't wish to set a precedent that one business affects undue stress on another business. And that is where a lot of my recommendation stands, where a lot of the alterations, in hindsight, the dentist office was able to adjust to that given their site plan. However, due to the dimensional constraints of the pad site, it's harder to give any adjustments without taking from the bank. Additionally, because the SUP was already granted for this, I don't wish to set a precedent that expansions are made on any sort of drive-through expansions. It's kind of similar to previously denied drive-through SUPs like the Starbucks that was going to be at Crossroads Village Center, those kinds of things. It turns down into precedent essentially, where I don't want to set a precedent of waivers being granted for the sake of meeting a certain, I guess, I don't want waivers to be granted to meet just exactly what is needed. I would wish to also respect the zoning ordinance and also respect the adjacent businesses around it. I also don't want to set a precedent of allowing for any more, especially if it says in our comprehensive plan, we want to promote walkability within the town. Given the constraints where we don't control our roads because VDOT maintains them, we want to do our best part to make sure there is walkability within. That includes not necessarily approving or building upon car-oriented infrastructure in the area. And I know there's traffic constraints outside of this, whether it is approved or not. And we've talked a little bit about the trip generation, but all of the undue stress that's placed on an adjacent business, in my mind, is not something I wish to recommend as we review and approve other site plans moving forward.
If I'm not mistaken, Thomas, I believe one of the concerns that the town has is basically increase of vehicular traffic in that area as a result of this SUP adding the additional lane. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
In my view, an increase in efficiency is an increase in traffic.
Anything additional?
Yeah, I don't have a good picture of where the elevation and the transition happens right at the very beginning of the 2-lane strip. I know you got different elevations and a little bit of a wall there. Do you know where the modifications will begin against that wall? Is it off or?
So to clarify, this is more of a grading question.
Are you doing
Well,
two?
it looks like all of the exhibits, they start at the same point. You see that little cubby hole there. I know that elevation. I'm assuming that there's no impact in the elevation here because there is a little bit of a wall.
So referencing 2 and 3.
Yeah, 2, 3, and I'm assuming 1, 2, but I don't seem to have an exhibit 1 unless it's just the SUP.
So within this red part
Yeah.
right here. So on exhibit 2, where the red marker meets the black right there, I feel like that's where we're identifying the elevation.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, there's what would be a concrete curved island between the existing drive-through lane and then the dentist office, which was shown, like the dentist acknowledges that that was there. That's what their plan was based upon. So while this is not approved, so the site plan obviously can't be approved, this has been engineered to a point that we're comfortable with the layout and that the grading can work.
I feel like we need to pass that down so everybody
Okay.
understands this is what he's referencing,
Okay.
this part.
Yeah, I think
I think it's right here. Yeah, and maybe show councilperson Beignet and then maybe the applicant,
Yeah.
so that we know. We're all referencing the same thing is what I'm trying to. Thank you.
Email that to Kim.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. You can kind of see the wall here, and that's the dip right here.
Right, maintains there.
Yeah, and you can see there's a stroke on the elevation of the green space there, the buffer space. I don't know how that's modified. You're going to continue a wall forward. You show it.
So that would be, yeah, so I understand now. So that elevation, well, an acceptable cross slope, which is only up to about 5% in the actual drive-through lane, would be extended. And then the landscaped island would only be 2 feet, but still pretty steep with shrubs. And then basically what would happen is there would be some mill and overlay for an additional couple inches through to allow for essentially the bank's parking lot adjacent to ours to be a little bit higher than what it is now. We would meet grade, like the existing grade, obviously before the bank, but it would all be an inch or so higher.
Yeah, and also, one thing that I noticed when I was doing a site survey is this pathway into the dental building area. If we're going to make this a one-way road, this is still open up to at least 24 feet, which is kind of enticing for people to go, oh, well, I only got to go 100 yards or 50 yards. What do we have here to try and prevent people from bypassing these one-way signs, just trying to get out real quick, or even being confused? Do we have anything that we're addressing there?
I think just like a do not enter bar and a sign can be placed there easily. I think we're at probably only 18 to 20 feet there. So not wide enough, like you're saying, for two-way, obviously. So additional striping and signage like we've done throughout.
Because we referenced that, can you please email that to Kim so she has it on record? Thank you.
Because yeah, I was trying to place distance just off of the graph here, since
Yeah, sure.
All right. Are there any further discussions, comments, input? All right, so that would wind up our discussion. Do I have a motion to adjourn our work session?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The meeting is adjourned. We will reconvene at 7 PM. Thank you.